When you speak, your body is sending signals that go beyond what you're saying. The human species is wired to connect with one another through micro movements, facial expressions, even scent.
Stress and fear and anxiety sends a pheromone signal. Calmness, trust sends a pheromone signal. Love and romantic interest sends a pheromone signal.
That's Dr. Britt Andreatta, an internationally recognized thought leader on the neuroscience of learning at work. Britt is the CEO of Brain Aware Training and former Chief Learning Officer for Lynda.com, now known as LinkedIn Learning. She is the author of the Wired series, including Wired to Connect and Wired to Resist. Human interaction is based on physiological and biological makeup. People will sense whether you're being real or not.
But even if you're really great at faking it, pheromone-wise, I might be picking up something, or even just micromuscular differences in your facial expression, my brain may be going, this doesn't quite feel real. There's something off here. And so we really are designed to read each other and interpret emotions and intent.
So the megaSHIFT we're navigating today isn't just about where we work, but it's about how we interact. People leaders have to move their teams away from the default of accidental or forced proximity, those fragmented office meetups and forced fun sessions haven't worked post-pandemic. We need to build intentional social architecture.
Leaders are looking at in the office or out of the office is just kind of this on-off switch, when really we need to be thinking about what type of work is being done. Because when you start to say, well, everyone should be here Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then they drive all the way in to be on a Zoom meeting, everyone's calling BS on that.
On today's episode, Dr. Britt reveals why in-person interaction is still irreplaceable for collaboration, trust building, and conflict resolution, and when virtual work actually wins. We'll cover everything from the biology of pheromones in the workplace to why your gut instinct is literally a second brain and what AI can never replace in human performance. I'm Dr. Cindy Pace, and this is The Shift Forward. Don't forget to stay tuned at the end for my final thoughts on the megashift of human interaction. This is not a soft skill. It's essential for a successful business. Let's dive in.
So, technology is amazing. And yet the human brain has not changed in over 300,000 years. Biologically, we are still wired to be a tribal species that lives and works together in person in groups no bigger than 150. That's our biology. And that biology can really support us in workplace settings. Technology can add a lot of benefits, but it can also strain how we maximize how we work together. So for example, if you and I have formed a relationship and we've got good connection and we've built some trust between us, we can very much work virtually with each other. But if we have not yet formed those relationships, when we go on Zoom or some kind of video platform, we lose 90% of the data that our body is trying to read in the other person. Just the fact that we only see collarbone and higher, we've lost, 90% of the body language that tells us things. Pheromones pass between us when we're in person that don't happen virtually. So in person still really matters, particularly when you're forming a team for the first time, or you're doing really important work like brainstorming and innovation, working through a conflict. You want your body to have as much biodata as possible because that's how we accurately read emotions with each other and then do behaviors that form connections and extend empathy. So it really is, it's not one or the other. It's really going to be a blend and a hybrid based on the task that's being done and how much trust the team has or those people have with each other in place already.
So that's interesting. A couple of things. I'm going to pull out a little bit of research, and I would love to get your reaction to it. So based on what you said, it was interesting. One thing I do want to ask you is, when I heard the word pheromones, I have to say, I was like, pheromones in the workplace? What can you say more about that before I jump into my other question? I was just like, I thought that was more love relationships. What do we need to know about pheromones in the workplace?
So pheromones are signals that our body sends to other bodies, and we don't really smell them. It's not like an odor, but it is a chemical signal that passes from one person to another.
Okay.
And oftentimes you hear them spoken about in perfume commercials,
exactly.
Right? Or cologne commercials. And pheromones do play a role when we are romantically interested in each other, but it also plays a role when someone's panicking, right? So think back to our tribal days. If you and I were sitting at the center of the tribe and we're around the fire pit, and people at the edge of the tribe are freaking out because they're perceiving a threat coming at our village, they're going to send off signals, and our bodies are tuned to those signals. So stress and fear and anxiety sends a pheromone signal. Calmness, trust sends a pheromone signal. Love and romantic interest sends a pheromone signal. So it's another way that our bodies are wired to communicate, even if we can't verbally communicate with each other. So pheromones do play a role in any kind of group environment.
So this is interesting, Dr. Britt, because I think that there's been this belief, and I've talked about this in other episodes, like we really are beyond fake it till you make it. People are really looking for authenticity. And so even if I'm saying that I'm happy about a change, or I'm excited for us to be back at work, I could be sending signals, pheromones, that actually suggest that I have a high degree of anxiety. And people can pick this up, regardless of what talking points they may be excellently crafted are saying. My body might be releasing these pheromones that are informing people of whether there can be trust or whether there's a threat.
Absolutely. And in addition to pheromones, your face is expressing things no matter how well you've practiced schooling it. We have bundles of nerves dedicated to reading certain facial features. So we have bundles of nerves in our brain dedicated to just reading eyebrows, just reading the nose, just reading the cheeks and the lips. And so even if you're really great at faking it, pheromone-wise, I might be picking up something, or even just micromuscular differences in your facial expression, my brain may be going, this doesn't quite feel real. There's something off here. And it's not always obvious. Sometimes we just get a subtle feeling of like, I'm not, and we may not even be conscious of it, but our body is really tuning into it. And so, we really are designed to read each other and interpret emotions and intent. And then what a lot of people don't realize is that your gut has a lot more neurons in it. It's considered the second brain. It has a lot more neurons, and it produces a lot more of the serotonin and stuff than even your brain does. So when people talk about the gut instinct, or they got a funny feeling in their gut, it's this whole second part of your neurological system that's paying attention and is letting you know when something doesn't feel right. And so trusting it is also important that we do in our lives, is that we realize my body is trying to send me signals. Am I listening to them?
It reminds me of when I think about the cell or cells, the cilia on the cells is for sensing the environment. And so basically we're in a state of when we're in the workplace where we're sensing. Now, someone might say, what does this discussion have anything to do with human workplace interactions? It has everything to do with human workplace interactions, because my aha from what you've just said and shared, what you shared with us about the research that you've done, Dr. Britt, is that the nonverbals matter. The call to come back to the office has grown louder and louder.
Yep.
The office is an edifice. It's a space without intentional design and choice where we're really resonating with people. It has to have, I think our interactions in the workplace have to have more resonance. We may be calling people back to a time where they're remembering fear, anxiety, fragmented interactions, maybe discomfort. Like I really never felt like myself at the workplace. So getting this call back is making people push back, right? Some people may be willingly going back, but we're seeing in a lot of the articles and the research coming out that there's a pushback to going back here.
For sure.
Going back there, going back to what once was. So if we think about where we want to go, the shift that we want to make is, what does a future ready workplace look like? When I show up to work, can I do my best work? Can I gain new skills? Can I maybe meet people that are not just on my team? So what are some of the things in terms of what people leaders can do to create the right conditions for people to be productive, be collaborative, and of course, innovation? We love that, would be a great outcome, but also have a sense of belonging and feel trustworthy, feel like they can trust the people that they're working with.
Yeah, I mean, what it's calling leaders to do right now is to revision what work looks like, because there's different types of work. And there's certain work where I can work pretty independently and I can work virtually, and the work product is excellent. In fact, even better than when I come into the office. And then there's other types of work that really benefit from live humans being together in the same space. When teams are forming, for example, and they're just starting to build trust and psychological safety with each other, having all that bio data and that time together really accelerates the team. Same with innovation or any type of conflict. When you're going through a creative process and you're going to be tussling with ideas, having people live in person with each other so they can read the bio data more effectively is going to accelerate the team. But if you and I are both just working on some documentation and sharing notes with each other, we can both do that in our pajamas with our cats on our lap from our homes. And the problem that I'm seeing is that leaders are looking at in the office or out of the office is just kind of this on-off switch, when really we need to be thinking about what type of work is being done. Because when you start to say, well, everyone should be here Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then they drive all the way in to be on a Zoom meeting, everyone's calling BS on that. That's not a good use of anyone's time, right? They could have been more productive staying at home. And the data is really clear that when people work from home, they actually work more because they're not commuting, they're not spending time on other activities. So it's really about bringing people together when the nature of the work makes sense to bring them together, not some arbitrary schedule that, oh, we're all here on these days. So if you're going to bring people into the office and you want to do like a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday schedule, awesome. Then shift the work so that innovation, team building, working through conflict is happening on those days. And then move the other type of tasky work to Mondays and Fridays. I'm not seeing that second level of intentionality being added. And so you have people driving in and sitting on a Zoom meeting or coming in to do something that could have been an email, And so we really need to think about types of work and then what's the best place that work gets done.
Yes, the types of work, absolutely. I also think about what being in the office, let's say I'm working through either a problem or I'm looking for ideas. There's something about in-person proximity that allows me to get up from my desk, walk over to a colleague, share, right? So now you can see what I'm talking, you can see how I'm feeling about something, or I can give you different ideas. I might walk you back in my office and show you a book, or I saw this. What are your thoughts? That is, those types of interactions are organic. And it's hard to plan. Now, you could plan a follow-up to say, hey, remember when we had that conversation and you gave me these great ideas? I want to follow up with you. But what I think that some organizations are trying to do is get more of that, build more of the impactful, what I call proximity. Ideas. The second is, and this has been a concern. This has been a concern for generations coming into the workplace, that when we lose this proximity, we're not able to share some of the tacit knowledge in the organization, the history. How did we get here? What should I know before that? Sometimes that happens in the meetings before the meeting. You're coming in the meeting place. You might give the history of why do we have this picture of sailboats on the wall. That doesn't always happen. Now, it can happen if you're in a virtual setting, but it's something that is a bit more organic. The concern in terms of proximity has also been about career progression and career advancement. If I'm out of sight, I'm out of mind.
Mm-hmm.
So people are concerned that if I don't say yes and just go back in the office, I will miss out on the opportunity to grow my career. I will miss out on the opportunity of who I need to know and who needs to know me. I don't get a chance to meet people that will make decisions about who I am. And what can people leaders, I've been thinking about, okay, if there's a concern as a people leader, I need to build this into how I'm connecting with my team. I need to understand their concerns about their career, where I can help them, and what type of visibility is necessary in terms of proximity. I think these are some of the concerns that people are having of why is it, why it's whether should I be, in office, hybrid, or virtual, because they're thinking about careers and projects and am I going to be chosen? Or because no one knows me, do I not get the top projects?
Yeah, and I think everyone needs to look at the context of their organization, right? First of all, not every industry has the privilege of having virtual workers. Some industries, everyone is on site all the time, like restaurants and hotels, and like you're on site, right? I work with a lot of energy companies, and they have a lot of folks in the field working with those energy sources and bringing installation to homes and working in neighborhoods. So first of all, we have to look at the type of industry.
Right.
Second of all, you got to look at who your leaders are, right? And the reality is there is an age correlation to who's in the senior positions, generally just because of how career trajectories work. So we're still dealing with a lot of leaders who have an on-site mindset because that's what they grew up with. They're still even just kind of embracing technology. COVID forced them to embrace some technology, but they have their personal beliefs around, I want to see you every day. I want us to have these informal conversations and formal conversations. So, if you're navigating career, you also have to kind of look at the context in which you're navigating. If those are the leaders and that's how they're speaking, then yeah, you probably should make sure you're on site more often. I also know companies where the entire executive team, there is no headquarters. Everyone is literally dispersed, right, and the entire executive team is not in one location and has never been. And they all, work virtually together as the regular course of action. So I think there's no hard and fast rule because organizations all have different goals and priorities. But we do know that biologically humans are meant to read emotion in others in person. And those informal interactions is oftentimes where we share more about our personal lives or we can see more biodata. So trust is developed faster when we have in-person interactions. You can still develop it online. You just have to be more intentional about it and creating those moments for more of those informal interactions. So it really just depends on the culture of the workplace. And The other thing I wanted to add, Dr. Cindy, is that not every workplace feels safe for everyone. So I think sometimes the leaders that are pushing for people to come back have always felt safe in the workplace. But we know, for example, that during COVID, women and people of color and queer identified folks really thrived in virtual settings. And it's because the daily microaggressions and harassment didn't happen. It was now contained in this screen. I'll log into the meeting, I'll log out. But most of those microaggressions and harassment happen in those informal moments between coworkers. And so part of what I like to talk to leaders about is, are you building a culture at work that is psychologically safe, physically safe for people? Because if it's not, they can't, even if they show up in person, they're not going to do their best work. And in fact, they'll do their best work when there's some level of protection. So it's really about creating an environment where people feel safe enough to do their best work. And then we use tools like in-office interactions or virtual tools to help us maximize our productivity.
I like that. It's like a hierarchy of needs. And, a foundational need is the need for safety.
Absolutely.
And that's very personal. That's very personal depending on who you are. But as a people leader, we have to understand that. We have to understand that everybody may not be experiencing the workplace the same way that we have. And this is where I think understanding the employee experience, not just your experience, because I think in the beginning, that's how it read. I'm not saying that was the intention of corporations, but it read as if this is what leadership wants versus setting a vision for why working together is essential for our organization. To your point, what is the context?
When we look at research about workplaces, oftentimes the criteria that's set is productivity, right? And so for a long time, people had offices. Each person had an office. They had a space where they could close a door. They could decorate that space. They could make that space work for them. Then we went to cubicles, but they were still assigned, right? And we could have our assigned cubicles. We could hang up our picture of our cat. We could bring our favorite plant. And then we went to this open workspace model where no desk is owned by anyone. Plop your laptop down. And while there are studies that show that that increases productivity and it forces people to talk to each other, there's even companies where nobody has an office, not a CEO or anybody. Everyone's just out there on the bank of tables. But what's lost in that is some elements that are really crucial for emotional intelligence. Because how most people self-regulate, let's say I've had a stressful day at work. If I could close my door, if I could look at my cat for a couple minutes, if I could play with whatever trinkets I bring to the office that make me feel good, I could self-regulate. And when we went to this open environment and people could bring no element of their home with them into the workplace, people really lost that. And as a result, they kind of disconnected their feeling of connection to the workplace itself, which is why when COVID happened and everyone got to work from home, and then again, we're surrounded by all the things that make us feel good. And I have the tea that I like, and you have the beverage that you like, and we are surrounded by the colors and the textures that make us happy. People were able to regulate their emotions in their environments. And so thinking about workspaces and workplaces cannot always just be about productivity only. You have to look at what helps each individual person be their best selves, right? How do I show up and feel safe? How do I regulate my emotions? How do I feel belonging and inclusion? Those are much more amorphous and very much tied to the culture and how people treat each other, the values that we have, the kinds of interactions that we create. And then I would say one more thing, which is every organization has a culture. So every employee needs to look at, is this culture working for me? I spent the first part of my career in higher ed. I was a dean and a professor at the University of California, which very much values wisdom, age, experience, intellectual thinking, right? And then I worked for a fast-growing tech startup in Silicon Valley, very much valued youth, the new and hot trends. moving quickly. And those are very different cultures, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I also think, I want to give a lot of employees agency that if it's, first of all, is it just your manager, but the rest of the place is great? Then maybe you need to get out from under that manager. But some places are great for other folks and they're not the right fit for you. And that's okay. Go find your fit. And that's where you will thrive.
Exactly. It also, it's important that people leaders understand the various needs of the people that they're leading and serving. Because who wants to lose great talent because we couldn't figure it out?
Right.
So this is really around being intentional about understanding what needs to be in place. And we can say we want a high performance, high trust, purpose driven culture, which I think is a noble aspiration. What are the conditions to build that? And then to your point, up under that, individually, and then at the individual, the micro, the macro, the meso levels, what do people need? This was interesting. And then I'm going to go to a quote that you said. But before I do that, this piece of research from the California Management Review, this came out in 2025. And there was groundbreaking MRI research that shows that job satisfaction and workplace fit activate entirely different brain systems. While satisfaction is about achievement, that lateral prefrontal region, workplace fit activates social cognition networks tied to belonging and what they use as a term of, the theory of mind. But basically the trust, the belonging, feelings of being acknowledged, being valued, lights up different parts of our brains. And you, Dr. Britt, you've talked about the importance of understanding these conditions. So when we think about, because you mentioned fit, like if this is not the right workplace for me, I'm going to get signals. My brain is going to start to let me know. But if I'm satisfied and this is a great fit for me, something else is happening. So we have to be able, how does a people leader diagnose or how do they deal with job satisfaction and workplace fit? And I know people like to say culture add, not culture fit. And that's what I'm talking about here. How do we reconcile that and bring that at top of mind as we're building the right conditions?
Yeah, the research is really clear that psychological safety and physical safety, and psychological safety is the research of Dr. Amy Edmondson from Harvard. It really is the cornerstone element that brings out the best in individuals and teams. Now, psychological safety is a pretty low bar. It's the confidence that I will not be rejected, embarrassed, or punished, right? That's a low bar for coming forward with questions, concerns, critiques, or mistakes. And it's an environment where groups can do it organically or intentionally, but essentially when you have psychological safety in place, people genuinely care about each other. And they also notice things about each other. They extend empathy. So if you and I were on a team and I noticed your energy was just low today, I'd be like, Dr. Cynthia, are you okay? I'm noticing you seem a little low today. What's going on? Right? That there's a caring for each other. Mm-hmm. And then the other thing is that it's called turn taking. It really has to do with equality of input. And it's basically this belief that we can only be excellent if we hear from everybody on the team. So we make a point of hearing from Bob and Sam and Abdi and Maria and getting their input because we know what we create will be stronger when we make sure we hear from everyone. That doesn't mean we like everyone. It's not a personality popularity thing. I may not like to hang out with Bob, but I sure value his skill and I need to make sure I hear from Bob, right? So those things are playing out for us. As humans, we are looking to be able to contribute our strengths, and we're looking for signals of safety and also inclusion. And when we have those things, we can bring our best work forward. And then organizations and particularly leaders can intentionally create that environment and be mindful of creating environments where folks can bring their strengths forward and feel like they're included and that they belong. So we absolutely can leverage our biology to then align with it instead of working against it.
Yeah.
So then culture becomes, culture should really be about creating the environment for people to do their best work, not just a set of values or a motto or a logo or whatever brand colors we're wearing that day. That's not culture, right? Culture is how you treat people and what values exist for how you make everyone be able to thrive.
Dr. Britt, in your book, Wired to Connect, one of the quotes I pulled out was true collaboration requires special conditions. When we get them right, we leverage so many powerful aspects of our human biology that can propel both individuals and organizations forward. And so as we think about how I want to go into another mega shift, how technology, specifically AI, is reshaping tasks and the human element of interaction when it comes to creativity and complex collaboration really becomes a differentiator in workplaces. What do we need in terms of creating the conditions? What do we need to pay attention to as people leaders? Because again, this is for those of us that are leading change in the organization, leading teams, leading the work. We know that creativity, dialogue, having great dialogue leads to creativity, the right types of meetings, making sure that we're creating space for the ideas and things of that nature. What else, Dr. Britt, may be something that we need to be much more aware and prioritize in terms of being much more collaborative, leading to greater innovation?
Yeah, so there's a couple points I want to make. I'm first going to talk about collaboration, then I'm going to talk about AI.
Okay.
So there's actually 3 types of teamwork that exist on a continuum, from kind of simple things to very complex things. And collaboration is a special type of teamwork, which is where a group of people are coming together to co-create something. They're going to bring their strengths, they're going to tussle with ideas, but it's an act of creation. And you don't know how it's going to turn out because it's going to be shaped by those who are contributing to it. That's different than cooperation, where people come together and they have their distinct portion of a task. The task cannot get done until everyone does their part, but they're not co-creating something. It's kind of a known thing you're going to execute together. And collaboration requires people to have a special set of skills. They need to be able to develop trust with each other. They need to have a mindful process for conflict resolution because they are going to be tussling with ideas. They need to really respect the contributions of everyone on the team. So when I work with organizations, I make sure everyone is on the same page about what type of teamwork are we doing today, because they look different. And we often mislabel collaboration in organizations.
Oh, say more. We miss, because it is, I have to say, it has become the word. I don't know if it's been overused, but how do we mislabel it?
People will often say, oh, we're collaborating, when really all the 2 teams are doing are informing each other of their actions, but they're actually not co-creating together. They're not hearing each other's ideas and working with their differences to come up with something that works for everybody. So people throw around the word collaboration, but collaboration is just specifically defined as the mutual engagement of a group of 2 or more people in a coordinated effort to achieve a common goal together while respecting each individual's unique contributions to the whole. It is an act of creation, and the result is changed by the input of the contributors. And then in terms of AI, I have some thoughts about this. We're really at a precipice with AI. And I honestly think it's making us value human qualities more than ever. I'm seeing, just as a speaker and as a trainer, the requests for in-person training, the requests for in-person engagement is going way up. People are a little burned out on virtual, and they're wanting to come together. In addition, there's certain things the human brain can do that AI cannot. AI does not have a gut brain. It doesn't have an intuition. It's a great pattern recognizer. It can also do certain tasks incredibly fast. But there's certain things about a full life experience where our brain is able to make millisecond connections from something that happened in the third grade that I just read today, and our brain takes our entire human experience, and it's this constant thing that we're drawing connections between. And that intuition, that gut sense that we have that something's not right, AI doesn't have that. Humans have that, right? And so I think AI has its place, and it certainly can make some automation great. It can scan huge data sets. It can sometimes do better diagnostics than humans do. But there are certain strengths that humans have that AI can never replace. And so I see us grappling right now with how do we maximize this technology. I want to underscore that we're also in the middle of a marketing campaign. All the tech bros who bet the farm on AI are constantly marketing to all of us that it is the thing that's going to change everything. But it also makes a lot of mistakes. And there's several different types of AI, and different types of AI interface with certain industries or businesses and platforms better than others. So I also feel like it's going to sort itself out. But I don't believe that we're truly going to replace humans. There's just too much that humans can do. And we're already seeing that. Some companies are in the middle of some pretty big lawsuits right now because they unleashed AI. And AI did its thing, and the humans weren't there to control it. And there's a mess that's being cleaned up.
Right.
A lot of companies that laid off a lot of people. In fact, there was just a study, I'm forgetting which major news agency just put this out, but a lot of the layoffs where they let go of humans to replace them with AI is not working out. And they're anticipating a lot of those humans will be rehired back between now and 2027. So AI can be helpful. It will never replace certain skills that humans, with our biology and our intuition and also our flaws, can do better than a machine ever will.
So I think that's insightful, and that's good feedback. I think for me, for right now where we are, because the reality is organizations have put a huge investment on AI. We need to understand the ethics of AI, the watch outs, all the things that you've mentioned, Dr. Britt. I think there is an opportunity, because one of the things about the shift forward is we want to unveil what are the opportunities for change. Human-wise, we need resilience. We need agility. We need that flexibility. We need creative thinking. We need a sense of belonging, psychological safety. So I think we're getting more and more clear of what are the conditions, what are the factors that need to be present for us to have really great experiences in the workplace, and what are our watch outs? Like when are we fatigued? When do we need to give people a break? When does there need to be a reset? All of that is really also important. But as you talk, I think this is going to be really interesting to see what more do we learn the more that AI is being unleashed in workplaces, and how can we make sure that we prioritize, as you've talked about, human skills. Before we go, Dr. Britt, what is on your mind? Is there anything of concern as we close out that you want to make sure that people, leaders, pay close attention to and continue to amplify?
Yeah, I think for me, here's what I know. Human biology has not changed in 300,000 years, and we're built to be a tribal species. We are meant to live and work together in community, and our default nature is care and connection. That's the truth of who humans are. And also, there's pressures that can create division. There's pressures that can create stress. But bottom line, technology should be used to uplift and improve the human condition. And in many ways, it can be. But if we overuse it or don't use it thoughtfully and intentionally, we can kind of undermine the best in humans. So I think it can bring out the best of our productivity. It can help us be more creative, like you said. We can use it to accelerate and improve. But at the core, we have to care about humans and what helps them thrive.
Absolutely. I would be remiss if I didn't say this. After everything that you just said, I think it's important for people to understand that this is not softness. This is called essential. It's critical. Yes. If you want your business to succeed, if you want to be a great workplace, or you want to be one of the best companies that people ever worked for, these things that you've just talked about cannot be missing from your organization. Dr. Britt, it's been amazing. I could talk to you all day. I want to thank you so much for joining us on The Shift Forward.
Thank you for having me. I always love our conversations, Dr. Cindy.
We won't build our best workplaces without changing the way we interact with one another. Now, I want to share my final thoughts on how to do that. Why is human interaction a megashift? The reason why human interaction is a megashift is it's really about the shift from this kind of routine transactional exchanges that we have in the workplace to much more empathetic, emotionally intelligent interactions where we really care about our colleagues. We're listening. We are problem solving together. I believe that it is a core competitive advantage. And so not really understanding how to have quality interactions can leave a lot on the table as we think about the future of work. There's so much that we can do to improve how we show up every day, how we really listen and pay attention to what people are saying, and how we work better and communicate with each other. All of that involves human interaction. How has human interaction with people leaders changed and evolved over time? Why is this a critical megashift right now? So megashifts are critical because they're time sensitive. It means that these are unavoidable forces that are shaping the future of work. And it has impacts not just on teams and colleagues and organizations, has huge impact for people leaders. Because the way that we have engaged and talked to each other has significantly changed. This is tied to what we've talked about on the show in terms of command and control. Very directive types of communication where we're telling people what to do. But when we think about the future of work, it's more asking and informing. It doesn't mean that we as people leaders are doing all the informing. It actually means that there is a shift in how we communicate. We're communicating in ways where we're opening up to hear from our teams what they need, what they don't understand, what's important to them. And so communication is at the heart of human interaction because it's not just about what we say. That's important because it's at the heart. It's also what we do. So closing the say-do gap is more important at this particular point in time than I think we've seen in the past. We could say one thing, maybe get away with doing something else, but the say-do gap, no one wants to deal with that. People want you to mean what you say and do what you say. What is one change you can make when you walk into work tomorrow? After hearing this episode, one thing that you can do when you walk into work tomorrow is be intentional. Be intentional about every interaction that you're having. What do you want to connect about? What do you want to get out of your conversations? You know, we love to set goals. People leaders love goal setting. So set it as a goal today to say, in every interaction that I have, one thing I'm going to do is make sure that the person on the other end feels seen, heard, and valued. Maybe even ask them how to do that. Ask them to help you. Say, hey, I listened to this podcast and I learned a lot about human interaction, and I learned a lot about the physiologic and biological makeup that we have. There's so much neuroscience behind our interactions. And I'm really working on making people feel seen and heard and valued. How can I best do that with you? That's what you can do tomorrow. Let me know how it goes. Thanks for tuning into the show. We have a lot more ground to cover in upcoming episodes, so make sure you subscribe, follow, and share.